Okay, so today we're gonna show you how to install an AC unit in a steel generator box on your brand new Arete food trailer on the tow bar. So to start, pretty much your tow bar should look like this if you're gonna be installing an AC in a generator box. And what you'll be needing today is preferably a power drill with a Phillips head, screwdriver, or if you don't have a drill, just a simple screwdriver would work. Also, you'll be needing a wrench, and preferably a socket wrench, 1/2 inch. Okay, so let's get into it. First thing we should do is unscrew these two panels that you see on the AC here. One screw is right here, and then there's two to take off this larger panel. Whenever we take off these two panels on the back of the AC here, usually I like to have it situated off to the side. And then once you have those off, what we're gonna do is basically kind of bend this AC wire here. It's malleable, but you don't wanna fold it in half. It's a copper wire. And then once you have those off, you're gonna take off these little rubber stoppers out of the brass wires, the brass hoses. And then you take off these rubber guards on all four of the AC wires here. These four, or five rather, are going to be going in, they're number coordinated. They'll be going in each of these four spots, and then the ground will go right here, or right here, somewhere touching the metal. The wires will be coming up through here, so you also have to loosen one of these screws here to turn this. And then the two brass wires will actually go right here, and we'll take these black stoppers off with the wrench. You just turn it a little bit and these will pop right off. Okay, so what you also want to do is unravel this right here like so. At least not all the way, but just a little bit, so where you could have these wires separated from the brass hoses here, because these wires on the right here, these are going to go up in this area here, and the brass hoses will be going down here. So they need to be separated quite a bit. So you do need to unravel this right here. Okay, so next step is to loosen these four screws here. You're only going to loosen them about half a turn, or one full turn, a couple turns. Don't loosen them too much, because then the screw will come out completely. You just want to loosen it enough to where those four wires can kind of slide right in here. It should be a little bit loose you should be able to tell by moving it with your finger. So it should kind of look like this. This one's a little tight, but I think they're all pretty much good here. Okay, and then these wires will slide right in just like so under each of these plates here. Once you loosen up the screws, they slide right in under these plates here. And then you just tighten them up, each screw once again. This is what it should look like. Just make sure that all four wires are actually going in between the plate, this shiny metal thing that's touching the screw, in between that and the base. Make sure it's not going underneath, but you'll be able to see as soon as you loosen it. And then you could tell the ground wire is right there, just up against any kind of metal. And then the final thing is you would loosen this up, take this entire piece off, and kind of put the wires together, and then put this back over, just so that way it's holding them all, and then tighten these two screws so that way it's holding all these wires in place here. When you're putting this white piece on, make sure to coordinate the bigger versus the smaller wire with the hole openings on this. As you could see here, we got the bigger wire on the left and the smaller on the right. But on this panel, the bigger is on the right, the smaller is on the left. So we're gonna have to remove this and swap these two wires just so that they can go in smoothly. Next thing we're gonna do is basically put these two hoses onto these two. You could see the threads here. These just go on and tighten with the wrench, and these will fit perfectly, the bigger one to the bigger one and the smaller one to the smaller. So in order to put these hoses on, I move it a little bit closer to the edge, closer to where it's going to be sitting and mounted. And then what you'll do is kind of separate these two hoses, and then you'll kind of do some more bending, make them a little bit more in place, and kind of line it up to this thread. And then you could pretty much screw it by hand, start to get it going by hand, and then you can tighten it up with a wrench. Or this one, as you can see, it goes on pretty easy. This one's actually going to go all the way on just by hand. And you could see kind of how you can bend this into place to make it go in at the right angle. See here? And then you kind of bend it, and then you could kind of just turn it by hand. Say this is probably the hardest part of the entire AC installation are these copper wires here. Next step we want to do is basically loosen up the 4 bolts on that are going to keep the AC bolted down to the tow bar platform here. You're going to leave the washer here, and you're going to have the lock washer. Once basically put the lock washer on top through these holes here, and then tighten it with a wrench. We're going to loosen all 4 bolts here. So when you undo all these bolts, now you just got to line up the AC with the lock washers here. So you may have to tilt it a little bit and then move it so it's centered. And then you could put in the nut or the bolt with the other lock wash. And then you just kind of get it going. You could do most of it by hand, and then you can use a wrench for the rest of it. Now we're going to show you how to install a steel generator box onto the tow bar. So pretty much what you're going to need is a wrench, preferably a socket wrench, 1/2 inch. You can also use a regular wrench, but socket wrench will be a little bit easier. First thing you're going to do is basically loosen these bolts here. There should be about 4 that line up with the holes that you can see here on the bottom of the generator box. One there, one there, one in each corner. Once you have the bolts unscrewed, just keep them on the platform on the inside portion here. And then you want to keep, obviously, the washers there, and then just keep the lock washers on the bolts. And then we're going to move the generator box to those holes right there. So once you tighten all 4 bolts like so, pretty much set. That's how you install a steel generator box onto your steel platform. Just make sure it's nice and sturdy, like it's not going anywhere. And that's pretty much it.